The theme of our lecture is Planning in Foreign Language Teaching. The first, the necessity for planning and the approach to the problem. The second, unit planning. The third, planning a class period. The necessity for planning and the approach to the problem. An efficient working level of teaching is ensured by systematic and careful planning. The foreign language teacher plans all the kinds of work he is to do. He plans the essential course, the optional course, if any, and the extracurricular work. The first step in planning is to determine where each of his groups is in respect to achievements. It is easy for the teacher to start planning when he receives beginners. Though the teacher does not know his pupils yet, his success will fully depend on his preparation for the lessons, since pupils are usually eager to learn a foreign language. Planning is also relatively easy for the teacher who worked in these groups the previous year or years because he knows the achievements of his pupils in each group. He is aware of what language skills they have acquired. Planning is more difficult when the teacher receives a group from another teacher and he does not know the pupils, their proficiency in hearing, speaking, reading, and writing. Unit planning. The teacher needs two kinds of plans to work successfully. The plan of a series of class periods for a lesson or unit of the textbook or a unit plan, and the daily plan or the lesson plan for a particular class period. In compiling a unit plan, in planning the lesson of the textbook, the teacher determines the difficulties of the lesson, namely phonetic difficulties, sounds, stress, intonation, grammar difficulties, grammar items, their character and amount, and vocabulary difficulties, the amount of new words, their character. The first, the teacher starts by stating the objective or objectives of each class period, that is, what can be achieved in a classroom lesson. Of course, the long-term aims of the course help the teacher to ensure that every particular lesson is pulling in the right direction and is another step towards gaining the ultimate goals of the course. The second, the teacher distributes the linguistic material, sounds, words, grammar, etc., throughout the class periods according to the objectives of each period, trying to teach new vocabulary on the grammatical material familiar to pupils, and to teach a new grammar item within the vocabulary assimilated by pupils, or he first teaches pupils hearing and speaking on the new material presented, and then pupils use this in reading and writing. The third, the teacher selects and distributes exercises for class and homework using various teaching aids and teaching materials depending on the objectives of each class period. For example, for developing his pupils' skill in dialect speech within the material covered, the teacher needs a record with a pattern dialect, word cards for changing the semantic meaning of the pattern dialect to make the structure of the dialect fit new situations. Planning a class period. The unit plan completed, the teacher may move into planning a class period or a daily plan, which in addition to what has been determined by the unit plan, indicates the ways the teacher will follow to organize his class to work during the lesson. Therefore, the daily plan includes the first, what should be achieved during this particular lesson, the second, what material is used for achieving the objectives, and the third, how the objectives should be achieved. Since almost every teacher has several classes of one level, he usually makes preparations for each level, although ideally a separate plan is needed for each class because classes proceed at different speed. Thus, he must make adaptations in his plans to compensate for varying speeds of progress in the classes of the same level. In the organization and conduct of a foreign language lesson, there is always a wide range of possibilities. No two teachers will treat the same topic in the same way. There are, however, certain basic principles of teaching and learning which should be observed. The first, every lesson should begin with a greeting in the foreign language and a brief talk between the teacher and the pupils. Through these conversations, the lesson may be motivated. The second, there should be a variety of activities at every lesson, including pronunciation drill, oral activities, reading and writing. The success of activity is measured by attention, enthusiasm, and involvement on the part of the pupils. The third, the lesson should be conducted at a high speed when oral drill exercises are performed. The lesson should be the fourth. The lesson should be provide a certain sequence in pupils assimilating language material and developing habits and skills from perception, comprehension, and memorizing through their usage in a similar situation following a model. The fifth. The lesson should be provide time for the activity of every pupil in the class. They must be active participants of the procedure and not the teacher, as it's often the case when the teacher talks more than all the pupils. The sixth, the lesson should be provide conditions for pupils to learn. The seventh, the work done during the lesson should prepare pupils for their independent work at home. It is generally accepted as good practice not to assign exercises that have not been covered in class. This especially refers to early stages of language learning. The eighth, the lesson should be well equipped with teaching aids and teaching materials.